Welcome to the Fixing Your Crown Boo podcast. It's a podcast to interview dope people in leadership who use the model of servant leadership and are driven by emotionally intelligent leadership and are passionate about lifting others up to empower their success, because the pie is big enough for all of us and we can all find a seat at the table. I'm your host, JD Johnson, and I'm a coach, consultant, and career strategist turned entrepreneur. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, but I've been living and working in Bay for the last 10 years. I have over 20 years of experience in a variety of industries, including manufacturing, telecommunications, customer experience, retail, CPG, and technology. And I spent about 8 years as a consultant with expertise in project, program, and as well as a dash of change management. In my consulting career, this is where I really discovered a passion for leadership development and emotionally intelligent-driven leadership frameworks and styles. I would love to change the organizational culture landscape by transforming the relationship between employers, managers, and employees by addressing how new and emerging managers and leaders are prepared for the people side of leading teams. Today, I have with me the amazing Geralyn Gaines, and she is the founder of Keeping It G. It's a practice of speaking dedicated to empowering individuals and teams to embrace self-advocacy and transform their careers. Through her signature keynote, Shifting Gears, interactive workshops, and one-on-one and group coaching, she equips clients with the tools to speak up, recognize their worth, and achieve their full potential. Geralyn's approach cultivates open communication, fuels innovation, and strengthens team dynamics to drive sustainable growth within organizations. Geralyn specializes in career transitions, organizational change, and personal development. She is passionate about helping professionals increase their visibility, enhance their influence, and expand their networks. Beyond her career, Geralyn is a world traveler, a foodie, and a connector who treasures meaningful experiences and relationships. She's an active member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and serves on the board of the Founders Junior Council at the Detroit Institute of Arts and previously on the Detroit County Day Alumni Association Board. Whether exploring new cultures or engaging in deep conversations, Geralyn brings her passion for life into everything she does. Welcome, Geralyn.
Thank you, JD. I appreciate it. I'm super excited about this.
Yes. Anything that I missed? Anything you want to add?
No, you covered it all. But I also want to talk a little bit about sustainable leadership, which is a topic that I'm exploring this year. So I'm diving into helping people know when to speak, find a balance in between power and peace, and staying grounded through change. I work with clients across technology, automotive, healthcare, insurance, and higher education. And I also support my mom's business, which is JMG Connects, a human resources consulting firm where I lead a lot of the training and development. But thank you so much. You killed the intro.
Awesome. You've got such an amazing career. I'd love to just kind of talk a little bit about how did you get into what you do?
I got into what I did. So let me start off with, I worked in corporate America at Ford Motor Company for almost a decade before I found what I love to do in speaking. I was working in a role where they placed me, it was called the Ford Guest Experience Immersion Manager, and I was asked to host and moderate one of our biggest dealer events, so about 200 to 250 people per event. It was lights, camera, action, teleprompters, all the things. And we had 16 events that year, and I remember we were in our supplier's office, and I went through my first pass of the teleprompter for our event. And it was like God handed me my gift. He was like, here you go. Like, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And so that entire year, I just loved being on stage. I loved the people that I got to meet, the different keynote speakers that we hired. And it was, like I said, a customer experience event. So one thing I'm very passionate about is hospitality. So it just felt like everything was hitting all at once. And then I saw, when talking to our keynote speakers that we'd hired, that speaking was a career. I had no idea. I did not study journalism in undergrad. People have always said, hey, you should be on the radio. You should be on the news. You have this voice. And it was just all came together at once. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it. I saw that you can make a career, that you can make money doing this. So I decided that self-advocacy was my topic, something I've always been very passionate about in advocating for my own career and for other people. And yeah, that's how I ended up doing this. I left corporate after almost 10 years to pursue Keeping It G full time.
Love it. That is so awesome. I think you hit on a lot of really cool things around finding your passion and finding out what you're good at. And I think it's really cool that you took that opportunity and transformed it into your own organization.
Yeah, I think that's essential. I think when you find what that thing is for you, you should pursue it. Even if it's something that doesn't make you a lot of money or whatever it is, like when you find that thing, go for it wholeheartedly. I always encourage people to do that because I think there are a lot of people in this world that will not necessarily find their passion or find what they really like, maybe because they're not in a position to find it. Maybe they're not digging deep enough. Maybe they're afraid to pursue it. But I have never been more happy in my life. I'm a generally happy person, but I've never been happier doing the work that I do. It does not feel like work. And I wake up every single day so grateful for my gift and that I get to touch people every single day.
Love it. And you talked about you had this opportunity that showed you what you love doing. Kind of just how did you maneuver that into your own organization and creating the speaking keynote business?
I have always been someone of conviction, like knowing what's right and what's wrong, always fighting for justice and just making things right, making things whole. And I knew that self-advocacy was going to be a little bit of a tougher topic to pursue, even given the climate. But I genuinely believe that when you do speak up for yourself, you are more likely to live a more fulfilling life. And that's why my professional coach, he always encourages me. He's like, ask for the things that you want. And so I have just taken that and I just pay it forward because the people that I coach, the people that I have the opportunity to train, the workshops, the speeches that I'm able to deliver, I see that shift happening in people. I see that light bulb turning on for people. Even recently, I spoke at Clark Atlanta University last year, and a young person that was in the room, I saw on Instagram that she had the opportunity to speak back at Clark. She had just graduated. And I congratulated her. She was, oh my God, Geralyn, it's because of what I saw you doing last year when you spoke to us that I knew I could have a career in speaking. And that honestly, JD, it brought me to tears when she told me that. But I'm like, that is just more affirmation that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Whether or not it's something I get paid to do, I believe that it is my responsibility to pay it forward and to help other people get free and say the things that they want and to voice their opinion and know what their values are.
That is so awesome. There's something about when the light bulb goes off in somebody else's eyes or when they've heard something you said and it just resonates with them. Being able to create that change and that motivation in the world and impact is just, I don't know. I think there's something so special about that.
I agree. And one thing I will say, it all looks different, right? Keynotes, usually in larger rooms, workshops, same thing. But that one-on-one coaching, that is something that is extremely rewarding, something that people don't necessarily see, right? Because I'm not posting, oh, here's my coaching session that I have with this person. But it's really being able to see somebody grow over time. I have a coaching client that really lacks self-confidence when we started working together, and just to see her blossom over this last year has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Whenever we hang up the phone, we're almost in tears because we just cannot believe how far I can believe it, but she came and believed how far she's come. And I'm a super passionate person and I keep talking about crying, but that's the only thing that really can bring me to tears now is that I know that I'm making a difference in this world and that it matters. And that if I can help somebody become more confident to see themselves, that is just beyond rewarding. So yeah, I love it. In all different aspects of the work, small scale, large scale, it's everything. I love it.
Love it. And I think you talked about like that moment or that year that you had while you were in corporate. Yeah. Would you say that was one of the most defining moments in your career?
That was it, JD. It's interesting because the year prior to that, I had a job where I thought I had quote unquote made it. Like I had 7.5 jobs in the 9 years that I was there. I always was very clear on, okay, what skills do I need in order to advance? What jobs do I need in order to, get this certain role? And the job that I had prior, I was working with our chief customer experience officer, who was actually a Ford family member. And I was hosting these amazing events for her that were global in nature. It was called the Global Dealer Roundtable. And then this Customer Experience Advisory Board. So Global Dealer Roundtable represented 22 dealers from across the globe. We would meet twice a year in person and every single month virtually about how we can drive Ford's customer experience initiatives forward in all parts of the world. And then the Customer Experience Advisory Board was focusing on having great partnerships and collaboration with other great customer experience brands. So we have Delta, Chick-fil-A, Navy Federal Credit Union, ADT, all these different groups. And so I thought I had made it sitting in these rooms with some of the people that are getting the experiences that folks all over the world are having every single day. Like Delta, that is like the premier airline, right? I get to talk to them about not necessarily the Shake Shack that they're bringing on board, things like that. So small things that make them memorable. And so, like I said, I thought I had made it because hospitality is one of my passions. And I was like, okay, what could be better than this? What could be better than, hosting these amazing events and having these super dope experiences? And then I was asked to do the role where I was guest experience immersion manager hosting these events. And I was like, okay, I've died, I've gone to heaven. I was in that job for a little over a year before I decided to go after it. I thought I had made it the year prior, but then I was like, oh, this is it. It could be so much more than what I thought. I love hosting events, but also being the host of the events in terms of speaking and leading and all of that. It just looked a lot different. I'd never seen it that way before.
Oh, that sounds so familiar to me because I had a similar journey learning that I wanted to host a podcast. That was never on my radar like 5 years ago. But I got the opportunity to run an internal initiative at my consulting firm, and it was called Propel Her, and it was all about diversity and empowering women within our organization and within our community. And so I put on all these different events, and I got to be the hostess with the mostest, standing at the front of the room, bringing women together, bringing these really cool people who had these amazing leadership experiences and then delivering that to the room. And yeah, I was like,
Yes. Yeah, I love that you went for it too on your own, JD. That's very admirable. I love it because I know there are a lot of podcasts out there, but the fact that you were like, you know what, this is my bag, I'm getting in this, I love it.
Doing the Propel Her initiative really taught me about, I want to elevate people's voices, not just, sure, that's cool, but being able to bring to the forefront people who may not necessarily have that opportunity, or even if they do have that opportunity, like being able to elevate that voice even further. There's just something special about like giving that back to them, and then they in turn are giving back so much wisdom to my audience.
Absolutely. I'm in situations all the time. Even yesterday, I was in a training class and I was trying to share with the people that were in the room, like, you may be that one person who gives another person permission to have that voice. You may be that person, the only person that will listen to them. So I love that you're like, okay, we want to make sure we amplify voices because you just never know what that does for somebody. Some people grow up in families where children are seen and not heard. They may have never had anybody ever listen to them or ever feel like their voice was valuable. So if you are in a situation where you can free somebody to do that, it's powerful. There's so much power in that. And then from then on, they continue to build that confidence and then they pay it forward. So it's like the more we do it, the better it gets.
I think you said something there and also earlier about self-advocacy. So I'm curious, you mentioned about your conviction and you're a person who really believes in things. I'm just curious, how did that turn into self-advocacy and why is self-advocacy so important?
Self-advocacy is so important because I feel like if you're not an advocate for yourself, you're not going to live the life that you want. I think some people out there don't feel like they can live the life that they want. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. And you can build the life that you want, but you have to be willing to and speak up for it. For me, I think I shared a little bit about growing up. I've always had this conviction of I wanted to make things right. I think it's probably because of the house that I grew up in too. My mom is also an entrepreneur and she worked in corporate for a very long time and then decided to go out on her own. I've seen boldness in my life and I've seen the life that she's been able to create for me, for our family. So just being such a boss and having that person as a role model has made me see, okay, if my mom can do it, I can do it times 10. And they have molded me and poured so much into me that I'm like, okay, this only way that I can pay them back is to do this work and to make sure that I open up doors for other people. So for me, I was a student athlete my freshman year, all the way through my freshman year of college. That required a lot of advocacy. I also was an activist at the University of Michigan for the Black Student Union and the Black community there. And then I feel like I was my own advocate in corporate America, which got me to keeping it G. So yeah, I feel like it's just every single phase in my life, I feel has led up to this point.
Oh, that's amazing. I think it's so awesome when we have people who look like us, who advocate and show us what's possible. I think I remember Michelle Obama, seeing her being the first lady, and getting to be there for 2 terms, and the advocacy that she's turned that into in her own career, even long after leaving the White House. I think it speaks to all these different levels where it's so important to see women doing things that we never necessarily thought were possible or we hoped were possible, and then seeing it actually be realized. I think it's so cool to see you doing that for yourself within your lane. And then we can point to all these women doing that for us.
Yeah, Jay, I totally agree, because it's one thing. I just started a Substack last week, and I was talking about in the Substack, I love that quote, "If not me, then who?" Because these people, like we're talking about Michelle Obamas, we're talking about the Oprahs, the Emma Greens, like all these people that are people that we aspire to be like, or have these qualities that we aspire to have. Like, they broke barriers. They advocated for themselves. They would not be in the positions that they are in if they just sat back and said nothing. They're in these elevated positions of power and of influence because they did break those glass ceilings. And I genuinely feel like in this generation, like it's up to us to continue to break barriers. There was a quote, "No woman got to where they were by being well-behaved." Something like that. I can't think of the exact quote, but it's so true. Well-behaved women really make history. I think that's what it is. They are well-behaved, but in terms of like staying within their own boxes, like it took them getting outside of their box to make history. And so I'm like, I want to be one of those people and building a life to be like that.
I think that is so interesting, because I think it's so true that well-behaved and being a lady has always been, it's a way to put women in a box.
Yes.
And it's the women who aren't willing to stay in those boxes who have made changes for the rest of us.
Just think about anybody, even in your personal life. They don't have to be necessarily a famous person, but people in your personal life that you look up to and like, they didn't play by the rules. They didn't let anybody tell them what they should be or who they should be or how this should look. They created their own rules. And those are the type of women that I aspire to be like. Those are the type of traits I aspire to possess. And that's the legacy that I'm trying to build, is I didn't play by the rules. I built my own table. And that's the life worth living.
Ooh, you created your own table.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes, thank you.
I had a guest on early on, maybe my third guest, Victoria Houston, and she talked about if they won't let you have a seat at the table, build your own damn table.
Exactly. That's the only way. And I wrote about that in my Substack last week. This is my light bulb moment for leaving corporate, was when I saw that there were no jobs that my employer at the time could have offered me that would have given me the opportunity to speak at this level. I'm like, it was time to build my own table. There were no jobs or roles that were available to me that could have made this happen for me. Then I have to do it myself. And so that's what I've been doing.
So when you're thinking about doing it yourself, building your own table, I'm curious, is there anybody who has been like your biggest supporter in doing that?
So I'm definitely a faith-based person. So I feel like God has made all of this happen for me, but it's also just been my parents. My parents are extremely supportive. I have had both of them in my life. They've been married it'll be 35 years this year. They have done all they can to pour into me. I'm also an only child. And so they have been there every single step of the way. When I got to 6th grade, she decided to leave her job and start JMG Connect so that she could be there for me and come to all my volleyball games, come to my basketball games, and make sure that she was present for me. And that is a huge sacrifice that she made. But I'm like, family is, for us, it's everything. And that's another reason why I decided to start my own business, or wanted to start my own business, because I didn't want to have to sacrifice family in order to be somebody else's employee. It's different if I'm building my own table and building my own company and I figure out how to balance family and career, but I didn't want anybody else's time to dictate my time. And so I would say that my parents have been there for me wholeheartedly. I love them. They also saw this life for me, not necessarily speaking in this way, but they've said since I was a little girl, they expected me to do something like this, maybe with my voice, not necessarily a motivational speaker like I am, but to use this voice, because I've had this deep, raspy voice since I was a little girl. It's funny because we talked about it before we hopped on, that you were just in Barcelona. And when I went to Barcelona this summer, I was with a family friend. It was me and my mom, and then a family friend and her 2 daughters. And we asked our moms, did you see us ending up where we are now in terms of career? And they were like, yes, absolutely. So she's in medicine and I'm in speaking. So it's just like, yes, this is exactly the lives that we pictured you all having when you were little girls. And so it's nice sometimes because people will see that trajectory for you before you could even see it for yourself. So I say that my parents have been that for me.
Oh, yeah. I think it's so cool how I feel like there are so many parallels between you and I. And I think that's why, like, the moment I met you at Black Tech Saturdays back in September, I was like, oh, your energy is so cool. Just your power, your grace. And I love your voice. It's not just a voice for radio, it's a voice
Thank you.
for movies. But yeah, and I think there's so many really cool parallels because for me, my biggest supporter has been my dad. And my parents are still together. And I think there's something really cool and interesting about when parents grow up and have this family and you're able to be supported by them and that they see the world for you.
Yeah.
My dad is from the Caribbean. And so he moved to Canada. And you can imagine in the 60s in Canada. So he's a dark-skinned Black man, has Caribbean accent. And he's not Jamaican, because everybody was like, oh, you're Caribbean, you're Jamaican. Good. So he's fighting
Which
against
island, JD, if you don't mind me asking?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a chain of islands near Barbados and near Grenada.
Love it.
Yeah. Can you imagine coming up, you're dark skin, he's a teacher, he's in all these rooms and spaces where nobody really looks like him or sounds like him.
Yeah.
Seeing him break these barriers, and he talks about how hard it was being this very educated and well-spoken Black man.
Yeah.
Canada. Let's be real, 60s Canada, they want to So yeah, and
come on. The 60s were tough for Black folks.
And I always say it's kind of funny. Canada has so much land, but no people. So just imagine, I think, what's the U.S.? It's 12 to 13% Black folks. And then I think it's, 10% Latin Americans? Can you imagine the 60s in Canada?
No, not. Absolutely not. And then Canada's massive too. It's crazy when you look at it on a map, you're like, oh my God, Canada is huge. But I know, like you said, most of it is not inhabited. So yeah, no, it's so interesting.
We ain't got no people.
Yeah. I know it's changed a lot. I love Toronto. I love how diverse it is now. Obviously, I wasn't born in the 60s, but yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Did you grow up in Detroit? Because I know that's where we met.
Yeah, Metro Detroit area. It's a little bit outside of the city. Yeah, I grew up here. My mom's from here, but we lived in Atlanta, and then we moved here when I was 7. So yeah, I've been here most of my life.
Okay, so I think that's a very different microcosm, right? Detroit versus Toronto, and they're only 4 hours away by driving, which is crazy.
Yeah, Detroit's one of the blackest cities in the U.S., for sure. Yeah, and I love that about Detroit. I love it. It's so unique in that way. Like when people come to visit, they're like, dang, I didn't know Detroit was so black. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? Yeah, no, we love it here.
So, yeah, I think it's really cool that we have, but I do feel like we have so many different parallels with having these opportunities that taught us about speaking, and then having your parents who are just these powerhouses of support and powerhouses of breaking barriers. I think that's really cool. So I'm just finding this out about you today.
Yes, no, I love it.
So as we're thinking about the struggles that we've had and who was your biggest supporter through all these struggles, I'm curious, in you becoming this powerhouse, having your own business, what would you say was kind of like your biggest struggle becoming G?
So one thing, JD, is I've always had a very strong work ethic. If I get an assignment, this is something I learned in my middle school and high school. Like if you get an assignment, just start working on it right away. Any deliverable, I've worked on it for a long time. I'm not a procrastinator. I like to put intention behind everything that I do. And so I'm so used to, especially as an only child, like very independent. And so something I really had to come to accept is that I cannot build keeping it G on my own. I don't know what I thought. I thought one day I was just like, oh, when I'm 50 years old, it's just going to be me keeping it G. And it's no, like I have to build the right team around me in order to make this machine work. And so that was, I'm not going to say it was a reckoning. Like it wasn't necessarily a negative feeling, but it was a reckoning that, okay, like you cannot do everything on your own. So in terms of like managing my money or having a professional coach, having a business development assistant, all these different things, like I am good at a lot of things, but in order to be great, I have to surround myself with true experts. So I recently hired a business development assistant who has just elevated me in so many ways. I absolutely love her. I have a tax accountant and a bookkeeper, my financial planner that's helping me manage my investment portfolio, a professional coach I've been with for the last 4 years, performance coach for my speaking. It is a full team keeping it G going. So as somebody who has been solo dolo for so many years, having to accept that I cannot build this enterprise by myself, that was a reckoning that I had. And I feel like that came about, I've been in business like 18 months now. I would say that came about maybe 4 to 5 months ago. Like the first year of my business, I was having a ball. And now I'm just like, oh, like I'm still having fun, but I need help. So it's all good. I've learned a lot in such a short amount of time.
I'm kind of curious. You said something about it being hard to ask for help, always trying to do it on your own. What do you think created that in you?
Yeah, I think because I've never really had to ask for help. It's funny, actually, one of my Michigan essays, I talked about being an only child. I have my parents and we're very close, but I don't necessarily have anybody that I can just be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, can you give me advice on this? Not somebody I grew up with in the house. And so I've always been self-reliant. So for me, it's a new thing having to rely on people to do anything for me. So I would say that it's not even something I have been exposed to up until recently. Oh, well, you actually do need some help in order to get these things done. So yeah, new phenomenon with money. Having a tax accountant, a bookkeeper, having a financial planner, those are not my strengths. Those are not things I even want to do. I don't want to read tax code. I don't want to know the changes. I don't want to know how to file as an F Corp versus an LLC. That's not my expertise. So why not just outsource it to somebody who loves to do that every single day? So it really got me to think, okay, there are people that love to do the work that you don't want to do every single day. So why not just tap them in and let them help you?
Bless the Lord for people who are willing to look at tax codes.
Yeah. Jenny Hendricks, shout her out, is the best tax accountant, bookkeeper, tax professional I could ever ask for. She's amazing.
One of the questions was all about inspirational quotes. And you have this one called, Why Do We Rehearse? Dr. Lee in Drumline. And I'm curious, why? And what made it so powerful for you?
Yes. Oh my God. I use that all the time. I love that quote. Why do we rehearse? I love that because I think a lot of people believe that speakers that are strong on stage, that they're just like naturally good at it. I do believe I'm naturally gifted in speaking. However, I practice a lot. I do not play around when it comes to practice. The day that you and I met at Black Tech Saturdays, I think it was 2 full days we had. The day before day 1 and the morning of day 2, I was on that stage practicing. I need to be feeling like it's real time, getting on that stage, delivering my lines, walking the stage, walking the space, knowing where I'm at. Even sometimes having on the shoes that I'll be walking across the stage with. It's important to have that real life, real time rehearsal because you never want the first time that you get on stage to be your practice. You want to have put in some time to really get the kinks out. Like, for example, I write a lot of scripts. So I bring my iPad with me to hosting events. And if you write a script at home on your computer, it may look good. It may sound good while you're reading it from your computer. But when you get on stage and you're reading, you're like, oh my God, that is repetitive, or that is redundant, or there was a little bit of an error there. That doesn't sound good on stage. You need to be able to make those edits and those notes before you get on stage when it's live. So why do we rehearse? We rehearse so that we can be as close to perfect as we can. Obviously, perfection is not attainable, but excellence is. And with excellence, it requires practice.
Oh, that's deep. That's pretty cool that that line just kind of totally sticks out for you.
Yes, I love that line. It's such a good one because you never want to freestyle when it's live. I always like to practice. And that's another thing too, especially I have always been big about my personal brand. So if I were to get on a Black Tech Saturday stage and people are so used to me being polished and I get up there one day and I riff it because I didn't practice, that is a negative impact on my brand. And so I always want to make sure that I'm consistent and that when people hire me, they know what they're getting. They know that they're getting somebody that is dedicated to their craft, that is dedicated to their audience, and that is dedicated to excellence. So they wouldn't continue to hire me if I wasn't, right? I've hosted, I think at this point, 5 different events for them. Even a virtual event I did in December for them. I practiced that. Yeah, maybe at home sitting at my computer, but I need to make sure that it sounds good. I'm creating an experience for the audience. I'm representing a brand. Not just keeping it G, but also at that point, it's Black Tech Saturdays. Black Tech Saturdays has hired me because they trust me to make sure that this event runs smoothly. I need to hold myself to that high standard. I need to live up to that.
And you kind of talked about keeping it G, and you were talking a little bit about a fun and quirky fact around keeping it G, like how you came up with that and why that decided to be the right brand for you.
Yes. So keeping it G is a cultural phrase here that I feel like a lot of people talk about keeping it real. Keeping it G is very synonymous with keeping it real, keeping it 100. And I've always been, like I said, a very convicted person. I've always spoken my mind. Self-advocacy is the topic. And I just feel like it really fits for what the work that I'm doing. It couldn't have been more perfect of a name. I also go by G. I have so many different nicknames. G, my last name is Games. I have so many different nicknames that have that G as the focus. And so, yeah, just keeping it G, keeping it real. Self-advocacy, that is it. It's being real, like I said, staying grounded and true to yourself while upholding your values despite challenges. That is it. So it just felt like a perfect fit for my work.
I love it. When you told me about your brand and the name of your organization, definitely is a brand, and I can totally see you with that.
Thank you so much, JD.
So as we're continuing this journey of talking about your leadership and how you got there and how you chose to do certain things, I'm curious, what would you say is the best feedback you've ever gotten and why?
So, what was this? February of 2024, my mom's brother was battling with colon cancer, and death was imminent in that situation. And it was sad because he was diagnosed with stage 4, and his battle was, I would say it was a pretty short-lived battle. And he was having many complications with his chemo, which was making it hard for him to get his treatment, so many different surgeries after surgeries in order for him to hit a certain blood levels to even get chemo. It was just a whole thing. And I remember I was in a hospital with him when he decided to not continue his treatment. And I remember I said to him, I was like, it's not over. And he shook his head at me like, yeah, it is over. And this was prior to him being put into hospice. Like, that was the next step. And he was just really sick in his bed. And he just said to me, it's like the last thing I remember him saying to me is, be you. And it's just so simple, but it's something I always have to remind myself, like, that I'm running my own race and that being me is what got me here. Being G is what got me to this point. And so when I'm making decisions that are aligned with my purpose, which is through keeping it G, like, that's when I feel most at peace. Like, I never am looking to be somebody else. I try not to even fall into comparison culture. Like, I said this recently, like, Big Sean is one of my favorite rappers, and he says it in one of his albums. He's talking and he's saying, when I start to compare my purpose to somebody else's, it's no longer my purpose. And I genuinely believe that. If I'm trying to be somebody else that's not me, then it's no longer me. And so I feel like that has been the best advice, because anytime that it doesn't feel good or something doesn't feel right or it feels rushed, like, it's not where I'm at right now. It has to feel right. And that's something that I've really been focused on too. If I feel like I'm running up against a deadline, or I really need to get this video together to post at a certain time, that's not how I like to work. I like to work very intentionally. So I need to feel at peace and at ease whenever I'm doing anything. So being me is the best feedback that I've ever got. Just to be myself.
I think you touched on a lot of really interesting things. I'm going to age myself, but I grew up before there was a ton of social media.
Yeah.
And I think that with the advent of social media, with the advent of being able to have the internet and being able to see what people are doing all around the world is such a blessing and a curse.
Absolutely.
Because I think it gets so easy to see what other people are doing and then compare what your life is. And compare where you're at and where your journey is. And that's actually advice that I give a lot to people in my life, which is the saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
I think it really is. Because when you start looking at where other people are, you don't know what the backstory of their journey is and what it took to get there, or if they're even happy where they're at. But you may want the outputs of what their journey has been.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really cool to think about just being yourself and don't look at other people's journey. And I think there's also another really cool quote around life is not just about the destination. It's about the journey that takes to get there. Yeah. So even if your end is not what other people's are and what you're seeing and theirs looks so cool, what was your journey to get there? And enjoying and taking time to experience the lessons, the joy, because I think they're two sides of the coin, and really enjoy your journey and how you got to where you are.
Totally agree. I was in a Bible study right now with people that are like ages 25 to 40. And it was a couple weeks ago, the pastor was saying, don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 10. like you just said, you don't know what it took for that person to get there. And the person that you may be comparing yourself to, they may have been working on this for 8 more years than you have. You don't know what it took for them to get to where they got. And so I know it's a very cliche saying nowadays, social media is just a highlight reel of everybody's life. And it's so true. I think about the things that I put out on social media. I'm not a blogger. You don't see what's going on. I don't consider myself a traditional content creator. So the things I do put out are thoughtful, they're intentional. But you're so right. Comparison is the thief of joy. I totally agree. And I think that's also why dating culture is so horrible right now. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That's real, JD. That's real. I totally agree.
Yeah, you're talking about what we put on social media and how it's the highlight reel. I think the last thing I truly posted on social media was me graduating from my MBA. Yeah, that was a while ago. I'm not really a poster on social media in terms of my personal life. I post in terms of work, but I started with Facebook and I went through that phase where it's like, let's put every single picture on Facebook and take picture. This stage of my life. But the last truly personal thing I posted on Facebook must have been my graduation from my MBA. There's this shiny picture. I was so proud. It was a struggle of a year. And the tears that we had, the drama that we had trying to work with these new people, journey to get there. And there is none of those ugly pictures there. The times I was like, what did I do? Why did I decide to leave my house and travel 3,000 miles away? And these strangers, none of that is on social media, right?
Let's say that people are loving the raw and authentic crying videos. I will say that. I think that's why TikTok performs so well, because people have very raw takes. Those are the ones that people love the most. Like if you had a bonnet on your head or you're crying or you're talking about your struggles, that resonates with people the most, I'm finding. I feel like Facebook and Instagram, they're very curated, but I think people like TikTok for that reason is that it is real and raw. So I hear what you're saying 1,000%. I'm not going to be on TikTok with my buddies, but yeah, no, I see that people enjoy that type of content now, but you also have to be vulnerable enough to post it, right?
Yeah, and I don't even own TikTok, so that's not even important. And I'm a really ugly crier, so we are never recording that, okay? Let's just be real.
I love it.
But to your point, we might enjoy that other saying, misery loves company.
Yes.
Maybe that comes from a good place.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I'm not even on TikTok anymore, but I agree. And sometimes it's sad people like to watch people in pain. That's another thing. Because have you ever noticed on Netflix, the best shows, like the top 10, they're always crime shows. I'm like, what is wrong with everybody?
What is it about the crime? Now you're making me think deep thoughts about inside. I just really love that idea. That feedback about being yourself is so key, and no one else can be you, right? You are the only one that can do you, and you're the only one that can do it well. I think it's so clear, so important to be able to try and not copy other people's journeys, not stress yourselves. It's so easy, right? If that's not where you're at that time.
I agree.
All right. So talk a little bit about who you are, being a person of conviction and keeping things real to you. What would you say is your communication style?
I would say I'm radically authentic. One thing I love about this phase of my life is I don't have to code switch. I can just be me. The brand is me. I would say I'm radically authentic. I'm very direct and clear on my boundaries. I think boundaries are essential in keeping your peace. I have some friends that say, you know how Gigi is about her boundaries? It's definitely a running joke, but they know I'm serious about protecting my peace. And I see other people around me as I continue down this path of knowing what it's like to just in equilibrium. They also start modeling that same behavior. I'm also very intentional. I always want people around me to feel comfortable when they're speaking to me. I feel like I'm a very good listener. And one thing that I'm also learning and applying is that I don't always have to say what's on my mind. That is something that I feel like I have grown out of because it's not always worth it. Sometimes the things that you have on your mind may not be the most productive. They may not be helpful. But one of my best friends is a pastor. I love him dearly. And he has challenged me with this. And it's, do I have to say this? Do I have to say this right now? And does it need to be said at all? It's just, that's a really good way to think about it. Does it need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said right now? And I'm just like, ooh, that's good because you don't always have to. People are like, oh, it's like, I speak my mind. And I definitely speak my mind. But sometimes it's, like I said, I'm trying to help people to find the balance between power and peace. And sometimes your peace means not saying everything that's on your mind. So.
Oh, I love that. And I think it's really interesting because being radically authentic and also knowing when to speak, but knowing when to speak your mind. Is that a real learning curve for you?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's something that I'm transparently actively working on in therapy, because if I'm teaching people how to communicate, I also need to become a better communicator. And I feel like that is one of my strengths, definitely, is communication, but it's always something that you can work on. One thing about people is they will try you. And so I'm in this space right now. If somebody is trying me, I don't always have to give them a response that they're looking for, a response at all. Sometimes it's walking away is the best answer, or not replying to that email is the best solution for that situation. So you don't always have to feed into what people are also giving you. One thing I know too is not everything that's said to you is worthy of a response. And I love that word worthy, because some things shouldn't even have to get you there. It's like, okay, that person may just be having a bad day, or maybe that's that person's just personality. I don't have to feed into a conversation with somebody if I know that they're looking to be destructive, or they're not looking to be helpful. They don't want to find resolution. And sometimes you are in relationship with people like that. And sometimes it's just better to let it go, not even go on that journey with them. So yeah, learning curve for sure, but something I'm actively working on.
I think so much goodness is in what you just said. And I think that resonates with me so much, which is, I think there were periods in my life where maybe I shrunk myself. I'm a very content, upbeat person. And I think as I got older, I got into this phase of not really stressing about what people think about me. And I think being able to speak your mind or speak your truth, and either you like me or you don't. Sure, I like people to like me, but I have enough people who like me, so I don't need everyone to like me. And I think that was a really big journey for me.
Oh, JD, that is gold, what you just said. That is gold. Because especially on this entrepreneurship journey, there are people that will not support you for no reason, right? Or they won't cheer you on for whatever reason. There are just, and I always have to explain this to people, there are people that, some people don't understand having haters. Sometimes people are just hating on you just because they're hating on you. A lot of times it has nothing to do with you. So why would I spend my time trying to convince this person that I'm great when this person will never see me that way? Right? Why would I waste my time on the people that don't like me instead of, like you said, the people that do? And being liked, I always say this, it's nice, but it's not essential. It is not essential for me to get to where I'm going. And I have way more people in my corner than I have against me. So those are the people I decide to spend my energy on. So I'm on that same journey too.
Absolutely. And I think that piece that comes with being able to be okay with yourself, and that some people aren't going to like you. It might be puzzling. Maybe there's actually a reason. How we're perceived and how we think of ourselves in our heads aren't always the same thing. And sometimes that's intentional and sometimes it's subconscious, right? Yeah. And I think being able to know when to spend your energy to rebut things is the learning journey, right? When you get feedback from other people, what are the words that you reply back? Can you just take that in and sit with it for a moment? I had a boss that really taught me that people are going to see things about you, right? And to them, the perception of you is other people's reality. And being able to understand that when someone tells you what they think of you, that is a gift, maybe painful, but it is a gift because you know what they think of you and what they saw. Whether or not that's true, whether or not there's context involved, that's all possible. But I think being able to understand that perception and being able to sit at peace with, do I really need to respond to that? Maybe I just take it and think about, how do I want to be seen and do I care?
I don't know if you read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, but that book really changed my life because I feel like as a younger person, I was always so worried about having to resolve everything and always having to be on good terms with everybody. And let them. If people think negatively about you, let them. If people are hating on you, let them. If people don't support you, let them not support you. And it just set me free from any angst or anxiety that I was feeling. And I felt like literally it was last year I read that book and I just felt like it had set me free. And it was like a perfect timing for me in on my entrepreneurship journey, because that is something that I have experienced, is having to let people go and continue to build what I'm building in spite of.
Yeah, it's a hard lesson, right? I'm definitely an overthinker. I'll be the first to say that. And this situation, this conversation will run through my mind. But I have found an ability to run through it and then let it go. And I think that is such a key learning. So I'm also curious, when you think about your life experience to date, when you think about all the things we talked about today, what is one piece of advice you would want the people listening to take away from this conversation?
I would want people to really just focus on themselves. That's all you can really do is focus on yourself and your journey. It's important to care for others. It's important to be there for others, but you have to pour into yourself and know who you are in order to be successful at anything. So not just as an entrepreneur, but as a person in business, as an employer, as a mom, as a dad, you have to know who you are no matter what. So always looking internally and knowing your strengths, knowing what you're best at. That is something that has really carried me throughout my life, is tapping into my strengths. Because if I'm working so hard, like for example, I always talk about how people who become doctors, most likely they've wanted to become doctors since they were younger, because that journey to become a doctor is not a short journey at all, right? It could be up to 15 years before you become a doctor. And so it's like, make sure that you're focused on the things that you want and not necessarily what other people want for you. It's your life to live. You got a life to live. So just live that. Be that.
Oh, I love that. I think that is so key. And I think that really ties back into what you talked about around not focusing on what other people think or focusing on other people's journey. I have loved this conversation, Geralyn. This cannot be our last one.
Yes. No, I agree.
I did want to give you an opportunity to tell us where we can find you online.
Thank you, JD. And thank you for this opportunity. It's been so great. I love being able to meet people, especially at Black Tech Saturdays, where people can find me. You can find me at www.geralyngaines.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at Geralyn Gaines, Instagram, Geralyn Gaines, Keeping It G. Also subscribe to my Substack, Geralyn Gaines, Keeping It G. I'm on YouTube. I'm across all platforms. But if you really want to stay in touch with me, highly recommend LinkedIn, Substack, and Instagram.
Thank you. I'm sure when this gets released, the gems of wisdom that you have dropped are going to just keep diamonding.
I love the diamond emoji.
Thank you so much, Geralyn. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see what's next for you in your journey. For my audience, you can find me at LinkedIn, Jayde Johnson, and anywhere around, whether it's Instagram, Mastodon, Blue Sky, you can find me at J_Elevate_consulting.